In this video, we're going to walk through the steps on how to create an irrigation or root zone sensor. A irrigation zone sensor is a virtual sensor that we create out of a grouping of individual soil moisture sensors in your rooting zone. This is a great tool to use to manage your soil moisture and setting up management boundaries to manage your water within, and it really gets you down to your ideal depth. The idea of the root zone sensor is to set up a sensor at the upper level for where you absolutely want to get water per each irrigation. So in the case of we're going to look at almonds today, we're going to start with 24 inches. So for us to have a successful irrigation, we know that we absolutely want to get water to 24 inches or below. And we don't want to leach water past the 4-foot sensor. So we're going to create a sensor that shows us that area of our soil profile. And we'll call that an irrigation zone sensor. Then we'll set up boundaries on that. This sensor also can be used for your infiltration widget, which I'll show you after we create the sensor. So the first step in doing this is we're going to pick the site we want to work on. So we're going to pick the Almonds West Station. And here right now, they're using the average soil moisture as the sensor that they're using. And you'll notice this infiltration recent events shows each irrigation. It shows the steps of water moving through the profile as it goes by each sensor, but it doesn't have a zone showing where we want the water to be. So this is going to help set that up. So we've selected the site. Now we're going to go to the configuration settings. So we'll go to the tool symbol in the top right corner. And this is going to pull up a list of all the sensors that we have on this device in the field. So you'll see the root zone summary is not set up at all. So it's not turned on as active, and it doesn't show in the map hover. Right now our default sensor is soil moisture sum, so we're going to change that, and we're going to set the default to the root zone sensor. Then we're going to make it active. We're going to have it show in the map hover, and we're going to say yes, let us set bounds. The next step is to pick the sensor depths. So like I said, for the top sensor we want 24 inches, so we know that we hit that sensor. And then we'll go to 36 and 48. So that's going to be the sensors that make up this sensor. To make that clear, I always name this. So I call it an irrigation zone because that's where I'm trying to manage water, and I'll put the depths in. This way anybody that looks at this sensor will know what it's comprised of, and then hit save. Then we'll go back to the home page. And now you'll see in the irrigation recent events, we have this green background. That's showing us that zone. So you can see per irrigation, did we get into that color? And did we go past it? So you see this long irrigation they did actually went right past that depth. So this is a great tool to see, are we managing water within that depth? So now let's set up boundaries. So it'll drive the color of our map icon. So you know your map icon, the background color here is showing these two blocks have already had boundaries set up, but this block hasn't. So we want to set up boundaries so it'll color that background, tell us our current status. So to do that, we'll double click on the station, and that pulls up the chart for the station. Here we'll see all our sensors. And I'm actually defaulted to a 3-month view. This is a good view to see. If we pick the normal view, which is 1 month, it's probably zoomed in too close to really show us a good history of our soil moisture. So I'm going to go back to 3 months, and you'll see we actually see the wet periods earlier in the year, and then we see this dry period where the trees really started to drink, and we started to dry down on soil moisture in this period. So I'm going to pick for my upper boundary here. I want to come off of my saturation point, just below that, and I'm going to pick 79.5. And to set that, we'll come over to the left menu of all the sensors, and you see the little arrows popping up. We'll click on the arrow next to our irrigation zone sensor. We'll unlock it. What was that number? 79.5. I'll put that here for our upper level. Then for the lower level, again, I'm looking at this dry down event. And if you see down here at 3 feet, you see our day-night change is starting to flatten out. We're starting to move into stress here, and we want to stay above that stress point. So I want to come about this time period, so 9 a.m. on the 19th. So I'll come up here to the top sensor, find that same point, and so we're at 51.8. So we'll put that in, 51.8. Hit save. And now you can see this management zone's been set up. So you're a wet area at the top and dry at the bottom. We want to irrigate before we hit this red, and we've reached adequate irrigation when we hit the blue. We call this driving between the lines. So pretty simple steps to set this sensor up. In the old days, users used to set these boundaries on each individual depth through the profile. So you would have 10 different boundaries to create. Now, doing it this way, you have 2 boundaries to create and manage 2. It also really helps you manage water to where you want it to get to. You know that if you hit the 24-inch level, you've taken care of the soil above that. So what we're really trying to do is manage this depth where we want to get water to a depth, but we don't want to leach past it. We'll close this back out, and we'll refresh here and see if the maps had time to yes. So now you can see our field boundary color is showing us that we're in a stress level. It's getting time to get irrigation on. So those are the steps to the irrigation zone or root zone sensor.